Welcome to the Thrivewell Journey. We're a new podcast dedicated to empowering entrepreneurs to uncover and embrace their purpose here on Earth. As multifaceted human beings, we strive to navigate our financial, mental, physical, and spiritual well-being. And that's what this podcast is all about. We're here to inspire, uplift, and equip you with the tools to thrive on your journey to greatness. All we ask in return is your support. 1, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or 2, download the podcast from your favorite platform. Your engagement, it helps us grow and attract incredible guests who will enrich your life with valuable insights and wisdom. Now, in turn, we promise to keep bringing you content that enlivens, edifies, and elevates your journey, not just as an entrepreneur, but as a human being. And with that, I want to thank you for being a part of the Thrivewell Journey.
Number one, certain skills that were really valuable 10 or 20 years ago are totally useless, like spelling. I spent, when I was in school, we learned how to spell and write paragraphs. That's not super useful, or even type. Sorry, they're both, right? Like there's two special things that only human beings have been able to do for all of human history. Number one, we've been the only ones to create meaningful relationships with each other, right? Mm-hmm. We have not, no matter how much people love their, their animals, it's never been quite the same as having a husband, a wife, a daughter, a parent, that relationship. That's number one. And number two.
Yeah. Beat up, bullied, and dunked on. Beat up, bullied, and dunked on. Bullied and dunked on. Yeah.
Welcome, journeyers, to another episode of the Thrivewell Journey. Today, our guest is Nick Jain. Now, Nick is the CEO of IdeaScale, a leading innovation software company. IdeaScale is the core of many leading global organization and innovation efforts, including NASA, Comcast, NASCAR, Doctors Without Borders, and many others. Now, Nick graduated at the top of his class from Harvard Business School and holds a degree in mathematics from Dartmouth. Let's just get on with the conversation. And Nick, welcome to the Thrivewell Journey. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much, L. Michael, for having me on. Really excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. As we have guests that come on, and I do my research and find out a little bit about them before actually, we get on the podcast. And you have a very interesting story, which I'm really interested to get into. So just to kind of go back before we, get to the present day, you talk about how you were raised, and you were raised by your grandmother in a small city in India. What was that like, and what was growing up with your grandmother? How did that shape your life?
Sure. So it influenced me in a couple of ways. Number one, I actually didn't meet my parents till I was about 5, and then they raised me after 5. So the meeting is like grew up very close to my grandmother, because from age 0 to 5, she was the only adult I knew. So deep relationship with her. She's since, she passed away a few years ago, but right up until her death, she lived with us, super close to her. She influenced much of how I think about life. Second is, when I grew up in this kind of tier 2 or tier 3 city in India in the early 1990s, and that's fundamentally a very different life than you would imagine, either that you get in the United States or Canada or a developed country today, but also very different than you would get in India today. I remember as a kid, electricity would go off randomly in the middle of the day when you're watching TV. We had running water for 2 hours a day, 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour at night. And even as a 3 or 4 year old, it was my job to go fill the water tank downstairs. So when water's running, go fill in the tanks that everyone had inside their house, because then you had no water for 12 hours. And that was the level of responsibility I had at age 3. And just, fundamentally infrastructure was different. Roads were less good. And what that's meant is throughout my life, kind of the notion that, hey, life is difficult or there's a challenge. It's okay. Hey, if I can live with running water for 2 hours a day, I can probably live with almost anything else I encounter in my adult life living here now in the U.S.
I could imagine, like, when as a child, that actually gave you some kind of outlook on what life is or could be growing up. Like, when you come up against issues or problems, that childhood may have influenced who you came to be these days. Go ahead and talk about what that has done for you.
I think And I want to be very careful in what I'm about to say because there are still hundreds of millions of people around the world who don't have access to even what I did growing up, right? So I
Hmm.
want to start by acknowledging them. But I think where it's influenced me is a lot of challenges that we run into living in the Western world, in developed countries, are really, rounding errors in the grand scheme of what humanity goes through, right?
Yeah.
So whenever I encounter challenges in life, hey, the how, heat broke or the basement flooded or it's a tough day at work, it's still a rounding error in the grand scheme of things, right? I've encountered greater challenges. And I'm more cognizant that people around the world encounter much greater challenges than even I've ever encountered, and they make it through it. So it gives me, I guess, more resilience and more perspective on what resilience actually is.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, not even imagine. I could actually understand that because growing up, as I grew up, I mean, we face challenges, right? And we just know we learn how to overcome them, and they become the tapestry of who we are as adults and human beings. Yeah. Did you ever imagine, like growing up in India, that one day that you would be leading global transformations in different industries?
No, I have a very weird kind of, there's that joke of living life one day at a time. It sounds really funny, but at least in my personal life, or as well as my professional life, I'm not too worried about, what's going to happen 5 years from now or 20 years from now. When they asked me when I was like 5 years old what I wanted to be when I grew up, I had no idea. Like, I'm not one of those kids who said, hey, I want to be a CEO or I want to be a fireman or I want to be a nurse. Like,
Hmm.
I just, was a kid. And that's kind of that's still the same mentality I have today. Look, there are things that I want to accomplish in my professional life and my personal life. And I want IdeaScale to continue to grow and be successful. But I am not thinking ahead of like, oh, I want to run $1 billion company or $100 billion company in 10 years. That's not part of the plan. The plan is to do everything right day by day.
That sounds to me like just being present in who you are today and just living in that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you went from India, you came over here to the United States. What was that journey from India to the United States? How was that
Sure. I
journey?
actually moved to Canada, which is where
Oh,
I grew up.
Canada.
Yeah, and I came here for college when I was around. Came to the U.S. for college when I was 18. I think there's a really funny story that so in all my memory, I'd only grown up in India. At age 5, I'm ready to start kindergarten. My parents bring me back to Canada, and there's like a really funny memory that kind of shows you how unaware I was as a 5-year-old, or maybe all 5-year-olds are this unaware. As we're driving back from the airport near Vancouver, Canada, to my parents' home in a farm town near Vancouver, I see the sign for a store called Wendy's with this, redheaded girl there. And the
Yeah.
preschool I was attending in India was called Wendy's. And so I remember distinctly pointing out on the ride back from the airport, hey, is that where I'm going to be going to school now? Pointing to Wendy's, obviously the fast food chain, because it looked
Yeah.
very kid friendly, right? That's
Of
great
course.
advertising on their part, but also shows you how naive I was, maybe still am as a 5-year-old.
That's funny.
Um, but yeah, like it was, as a kid, you just take things in stride, whether you're living in, in India or, or Canada or the United States. It's that's all the only life you know. You don't know,
Right.
necessarily that, hey, there's, billionaires out there living in air conditioned apartments. Not something you're aware of. And I think a lot of children, especially if they're raised by loving and caring families, are just, they live in a very comfortable, protected world. And,
Yeah.
and I was one of them.
Yeah. I have great nephews rather, that, they spend a lot of time with me. And I just see through their eyes how the world is, and everything for them is perfect. You know what I mean? And they're taken care of. But to them, Uncle Mike is, this superstar. And it's so funny because, that's not the life I live, but to them, that's who they are. So just, being 5-year old, it's just who you are and just loving life, which is really great. And so you were in Canada. You're in Canada. You came to school here, and you started in Dartmouth, or do you start in Harvard?
Dartmouth. I went to Dartmouth for undergrad and then at Harvard for business school.
Harvard is okay. Harvard is pretty cool school, from what I understand.
So I've heard.
uh, uh, what drew you to go to those schools?
Sure. So Dartmouth was very easy. It's obviously a good school,
Yep.
and they offered me a bunch of money. My parents are both blue collar workers. My father was a janitor, and so when a good school says, "Hey, we're going to give you like
There you go.
75% off," you
Yeah.
kind of say yes, right? The other 25% was still pretty expensive, but my parents, had saved up, they'd done the typical immigrant thing. They'd saved up every dollar to give me a better chance at life, and
Hmm.
so Dartmouth just gave me, 75%, 80% scholarship, and that made it a lot easy to say yes, very easy to say yes. Um, Going to Harvard was look kind of two or three things. Number one, it's Harvard. It's nice to have that on your resume.
Right.
When you're a poor kid from somewhere else, like going to a place like that opens a lot of doors that may not otherwise be open. Second, I met a lot of really interesting people. And interesting can mean like famous and rich, but also just interesting people who've done cool things. I met one of the things like I think HBS does really well is they have folks from military backgrounds, folks from nonprofit backgrounds, folks from scientific backgrounds. So I made friends and developed relationships with people who from other walks of life that I'd never encountered, at least in my professional career. And as I said, it opened a lot of doors that may not have been open for me otherwise.
I can imagine. I can imagine. What do you have a transformative moment while you're in Harvard? I don't know if you
Yeah,
have,
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to give you a thoughtful answer rather than a flippant answer.
and I can appreciate that.
Not from Harvard. I can probably point to some things from college, but I don't think business school is a transformative experience per se.
Well, let's just talk about just because we're in that era, and just building up, just so people can know you. We're building up here. What is a transformative moment, or can you recall a transformative moment in that era in your college years?
Sure. So, a transformative moment to me is one that makes you realize you had a misconception about the world.
Hmm.
Okay. Something that you just assume to be true, like gravity, an apple falls from a tree, and you realize, wait, gravity may not always work that way in other parts of the universe. That's a bad example. Gravity does work everywhere the same.
Gotcha.
Um, but it's like something you've believed to be so true down to your soul, and you realize it's not.
Yeah.
And I had one kind of in my educational background. So Dartmouth is a pretty good school. There's again, it's an Ivy League school. There's a lot of smart people, a lot of rich people there, all that fun stuff. And
Hmm.
when I showed up in my high school career, I went to a small farm town school, not some fancy prep school, not some elite magnet school, just a normal middle class town, right? Like folks there were blue collar employees, or most folks, parents there were blue collar workers. When I showed up at Dartmouth, I'd been very fortunate. I'd been a good student. I'd gotten a good education. I just assumed that, hey, now I'm at this great school. Everyone has had the fortune of having such a great experience and such a great education. And the kind of transformative experience or eye-opening experience I had there was like, no, it turns out that a lot of high schools around the United States actually really suck. And these include some extremely well-funded ones, elite ones, like prep school ones where people are dropping $40,000 a year, but also a
Hmm.
lot of just regular public school systems in the United States suck. It made me realize how fortunate I was to get the education I'd gotten because Canada tends to have a very well-funded, good, rigorous education system. And the implication was like, A, it was eye opening to realize how different qualities of education are across different schools.
Right.
But B, that a lot of the skills that I had taken for granted, that, hey, I had learned how to do this math thing, or I had read books from other countries. And again, despite going to a normal middle class school, made me realize that a lot of assumptions about the skills that that I assumed people had developed were incorrect, and that's something that's been very relevant throughout my career. Because sitting here as CEO, I just assumed that somebody may have learned this skill, but that's not true, right? Somebody may not have learned how to do a marketing ROI analysis because their marketing boss had not taught it to them, or somebody may not, somebody may be a software engineer and they may
Hmm.
not have actually looked at how an algorithm works or how to write machine code, or somebody may be an artist and they may not actually have studied why Pablo Picasso became famous. And those are assumptions about how educational and skills journeys I assume to be true are not necessarily true.
Right. Wow. Okay. That's good. So you're in this, in this era, you go through these transformative moments. What led you into the next space in your life? And was that when you started working for Bain Capital and Greenlight?
Sure. So after kind of during my educational career between college, business school, and afterwards, I worked in finance. Really fun area. Learned a lot. You're very early in your career. You're getting to work with some extraordinarily talented people. You get,
Hmm.
I was at 22. I was in the same room as CEOs. I wasn't, presenting to CEOs, but I got to be in the same room and learn from them.
Yeah.
And that's such an extraordinary experience, especially early in your career when you get to be around extraordinary senior and successful people. Um, what I do today now is a bit different. I'm a professional CEO, so either private equity firms, venture firms, or founders hire me to take companies to their next level of success. Um, and that kind of happened more by coincidence than anything else. One day I got a call saying, Nick, hey, do you want to come co-run $100 million revenue trucking company? And that's obviously a once in a lifetime phone call that you get. I said yes after thinking about it.
Yeah.
And that's how I've fallen into the career path that I'm in now, which is kind of really cool, right? I'm on my third company now. I am helping grow IdeaScale into a $1 billion global organization. That's a fun journey to be on.
Yeah. You have a lot going on for you in the different different areas that you've been in. And now that you're in idea scale and you talk a lot about innovation, what is innovation to you?
Innovation is a process for discovering and doing new things. And that can be, new products. It can be new workout routines. It can be new sports that we develop. It's that process by which you arrive at new things and new ways of doing things.
Hmm. Now, these are ideas, and you talk about idea meritocracy. I was reading something about it, and it's basically um, they were talking about. I can't find it right now, but it's the power of idea meritocracy and how it's really changing in a lot of companies. Uh, what's happening? What's the shift now that's
Sure.
happening in companies?
So let's look back to kind of old ways of doing things. So historically, if you look at most organizations, and still many organizations operate this way, is there's two ways ideas get heard. Number one, they're said by the boss. So when the CEO says something, it could be the dumbest idea in the world, but people listen because he or she is the CEO or
Hmm.
the managing director, or whatever. So
Hmm.
that's method one, where whoever's the most senior, their voice, their ideas get heard and their ideas get done, even if they're bad ideas. The second way is whoever speaks the loudest. So if someone is really popular or they're really charismatic or they're an extrovert, they're much more likely to say their ideas, promote their ideas, make their ideas go viral than someone who's, let's say, an introvert. And again, so that's not necessarily the best idea winning, that's the loudest idea winning. There's an increasing shift as companies become less hierarchical and more results oriented. That look, we don't care. We want to separate the quality of an idea from the seniority or loudness of the person. So if a quiet junior person has a great idea, we should listen to them. If it's the CEO has a great idea, if it's someone in Japan, we should listen to them because we want the best ideas because they become the best products or best services that we can deliver to our customers or to our constituents. So the notion of an idea meritocracy is shifting from doing just whatever the boss says to a world where the best ideas get done, no matter where they come from, whether they come from somebody who looks different than you, somebody who speaks with a funny accent, somebody who's junior. We want the
Hmm.
best ideas in our organization or any organization to happen, not just the loudest ideas.
That's what you bring to different organizations?
That's what our so we're a software company. That's what our software does. Our software is kind of think of it like it's a social media platform for ideas. So in TikTok, everyone submits their, crazy cat videos or dance videos. A lot of the videos on TikTok suck, but guess what? Because the voting systems, the algorithms, the best videos, the ones that are most eye-catching, the best, they float to the top, go viral across the world. Our software does that, except with making the best ideas go viral.
You only do that for large companies, or who do you do that for? Is that
Sure.
like even it's like singular person LLCs or just large companies?
So our customers tend to be large organizations, Comcast, Pfizer, U.S. Post Office, right? These big media organizations that have lots of people, but not a good way to get all those people's ideas together in one place and sort through them. Now, the good news is that's who our paying customers are. The good news is our founder's mission was we want to support innovation. So as part of that, we actually give our software away completely free for teams or organizations less than 100 people. So if you are one person, if you're L. Michael, you can just use our software entirely online, totally for free by yourself or with your team of up to 100 people. And that could be 100 people at Samsung if you wanted, right? Like $1 billion company. So yes, our clients tend to be big organizations because they find it most useful. However, we intentionally give our software away to support innovation among smaller organizations or individuals.
Why do you do that?
2 reasons. Number one is what our mission is. Our mission very clearly is we want to support innovation around the world, right? And if we really believe that, and it's not just buzzwords or corporate hype, you kind of got to be willing to support for people who can't afford that enterprise grade software, right? If we believe in what we do, we have to be willing to kind of take that extra step. Number 2 is it's obviously a good marketing avenue where eventually, look, your team may be 99 people today. When your company becomes a 1,000 person company or $5,000 billion company, we want you to remember that we were there for you when you were small, and to remember that we were there to support that innovation that led to your success. And we'd like you to come back to us then.
Got that. Do you, I'm looking at the present, and we talked about it a little bit before versus the past, and let's talk about generational, I guess generational spaces. What are you? Are you millennial, Gen X, or what are you?
I don't
Gen
know.
Z?
I'm born in the late 80s. I don't know which generation that makes
So
me.
maybe millennial or something like that. Okay. Well, I'm a I think Gen X, maybe Gen X or something. So when we talk about innovation and all these things that are changing, do you find where people are older people that you may have come in contact with, that they're afraid of the change, or they have some hesitancy about the change or using IdeaScale?
I don't think about using IdeaScale. We've made our software kind of, I like to use the word stupid simple to use. If you can open up Instagram or Facebook, right, you should be able to use our software because it's at the end of the day, it's a social network. If you can post
Right.
a video of your dog to Facebook, you can use our software because it basically works very similarly. So we don't face a resistance to using our software based on how old someone is or which country they sit in, because it's designed to be, very social. That's what we focus very hard on. Innovation as a general concept is sometimes more difficult for people who are, more calcified in their ways or more habituated in their ways, right? And that
Right.
often comes with age. That's okay, right?
Yeah.
Like, my parents who've retired over the last decade or so, they are less interested in trying out, the newest AI tool. My mom, I introduced my mom to ChatGPT and Gemini, and she likes it. She'll use it a bit, but is she going to make it a part of her daily routine? Less so, right? Than somebody who is 22. They are more open to change, but I think a lot of 22-year-olds entering the workforce realize that if they don't adopt these AI tools, they're going to be they're not going to be employed in 10 or 20 years because it's become such a core part of the skill set you need to be a productive member of the workforce these days. So going back to your question, our software doesn't meet resistance based on generational or race or gender or anything like that, because it's actually designed to be super easy to use. But the general notions of innovation are often, sometimes innovation is easier with younger workforces, but that's not necessarily true. There's there's a lot of companies that have 50 and 60-year-olds only that actually are reasonably innovative because they have that mentality and culture to succeed.
How do you cultivate innovation within an organization?
Sure. I think what I call the 3-legged stool of innovation. You need 3 things. Number 1, you actually need people who want to innovate. And that in some ways is innate characteristics. Some people just want to show up 9 to 5 and do the same thing over and over. Other people want to try new things. So you need people who have that spirit of innovation or experimentation. Number 2, you need to create the right incentives to innovate. And a lot of organizations actually really suck at this, because at many organizations, if you try something and fail, you get slapped or you get demoted or you get laughed at, right? And if you try something and succeed, your boss or your company steals your idea and they make $1 billion off of it. So that's called a perverse incentive, where they're actually saying, don't try anything new, because if you fail and F up, we're going to blame you. And if you succeed, we're going to take your idea. That's the exact opposite of what you want. So you want to create a positive incentive. And then third is the right tools and technology, which is obviously where IdeaScale comes in. Where if you let's imagine you got the right people, you've been given the right incentives, and then you send them into a dark room by themselves and say, go innovate. That would be crazy, right? That would be like telling an athlete, go, a world-class runner, go run, but we're not going to give you a pair of shoes. So a lot of companies also, struggle with this. They've hired the right people. They've given a lot of thought to giving the right incentives. And then they say, go be creative or go be innovative. That's often not a great thing to do, because it's akin to telling an athlete, go run without shoes.
Yeah, that probably wouldn't work well.
I mean, it can. Some athletes, train barefooted, but when they go out and run their races, right? I'm a runner. I'll sometimes run barefoot on the track just to stretch different muscles, but it's it'll tear up my feet if I do that for too long.
Yeah, so I'm a sprinter. I've sprinted, for many years. Not now. I'm, older and a little more, just more pain in different areas, right? But yeah, I see what you're saying. And is it crucial for like business leaders to, especially in tech, to really just have a solid understanding of innovation and where we're headed to in the future as far as AI and things like that?
Sure. So I don't want to. I'm going to be careful and not speak for the entire technology industry, because
Of course.
there's very few leaders who have that capability to do that. What I will say for myself, I run a software company, and I
Uh-huh.
believe it is super important for me to stay abreast of all the innovation. So I spend 20, 30 hours every single month explicitly trying to learn new skills and new technologies that are out there. So 2 months ago, I took courses on prompt engineering, so I could learn how to use ChatGPT and Gemini and these AI tools like a pro. Last month, I personally built a couple AI tools in code myself,
Oh,
just to
wow.
show like, hey, it works. This month, I'm trying some commercial tools for AI selling, for AI marketing. So it is really important. I would say it's really important for technology leaders to continue to learn about new technologies, because there's always new technologies coming out that could either help your business or disrupt your business.
What's up, Thrivewell Journey listeners and watchers? Look, if you're someone with big dreams of entrepreneurship but need a flexible way to earn income while building your business, let me tell you about the Orions Group. Through our partnership with Arise Virtual Solutions, you can become a customer support professional, aka CSP, and start earning from home on your own terms. Arise offers a streamlined certification process, getting you trained and ready to work with well-known brands all across America. You can set your own hours, choose the clients you want to work with, and create a work-life balance that fits your entrepreneurial goals. The best part, you don't have to choose between your side gig and your business dreams. Being a CSP with the Orions Group means you can bring in extra income while have the flexibility to focus on growing your own venture, much like I did. Whether you're looking to supplement your income or need a bridge while building your empire, this is the opportunity for you. You interested? If so, head over to www.theorionsgroup.com to learn more about becoming a CSP with the Orions Group. Look here. Support your entrepreneurial journey while supporting the Thrivewell Journey podcast at the same time. All right, one more time, www.theorionsgroup.com. All right, we're done with the spot. Let's get back to the podcast. Yeah. There's a lot of, there's a lot of stuff happening around AI, right? I just saw it was not that I was looking for it, but I found it and I saw it. Saw a commercial. It was something with Kim Kardashian, and she had this robot, and she was teaching this robot to do things, and I think it was blow a kiss or something like that. What role is that going to be playing in people's lives as we move forward? What do you think?
So robot companions have been an idea for a long time. If you've ever read like Asimov's I, Robot series, where humans started inventing this is an old book series from the 1960s.
Right.
Robin Williams actually did a movie off it called Millennium Man in the 2000s. We are now, one of the first things once ChatGPT things came out was people started inventing girlfriend, boyfriend chatbots for people, because people are lonely. They wanted somebody who chats and empathizes with them. So what I would say is the genie's out of the bottle. We are going to have social robots or social AIs as part of our lives. And those could be, those could be our future boyfriends and girlfriends. They could be our nannies that are teaching our children.
That
Um,
sounds weird to me.
I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I'm saying it's out of this is a real product. There are $100 million companies out there that make chatbots that are people that act as people's boyfriends or girlfriends, or they're, you can use them as tutors. I used an AI recently to teach me how to do a weird function in databases that I was trying to deal with. So these AIs are increasingly going to play a social part in our lives, and that social part could be very extreme, where somebody could go marry a robot in 20 or 30 years. I don't know. I think it's very possible once we figure out the legal system for that. But in
Still
the
strange,
more
but
intermediate term, they're already, acting as people's surrogate boyfriends or girlfriends. They are acting as tutors and teachers and nannies. Once we start putting AIs into robots, they could very easily be our, if you've ever seen the Jetsons, the Jetson nanny, right?
mhm.
Um, they could be our pets. I was in Japan about 6 months ago, and there was these little, very cute but dumb robot AI pets that a woman who I was working with there, she'd bought this because she was allergic to dogs and cats, but she had this little cute robotic dog pet that was very kind of cool.
It is cool. And I have nothing against it at all. I was actually I can't remember, but I was talking about the Jetsons at one point, and I remember that it was an episode where um, uh, I forgot her name, the lady,
Rosie, I think it was Rosie, was it?
not Rosie, not the robot, but the wife of the Jetsons,
Oh,
Jay
I don't even
Janet or
know.
something.
George Jetson, his wife Jane. Is it Jane
Jane,
Jetson?
Jane
Okay.
Jetson. And so you went through the song. I got
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
And she was actually like, the TV came down where she can actually talk like we're talking. She wasn't all made up, so she put a mask on so that it make her look like she was, she was all ready to go. And the screen came down, and now she's, talking, on that screen. The the point is that back then, I think it was maybe in the '90s or something. Then we're now actually kind of living that life presently, such like as iRobot, and there's a couple of different movies that I'm thinking about. I can't remember the name, where they had the girlfriend robot, where there was just talking through some kind of telephone, that they had the girlfriend and the boyfriend robot, and it's just like art imitating life imitating art, and that's just seems like that's where we're going. Um, it's very interesting to me that we're still. I mean, it seems like it's already out there. We're just now catching up to it. Um, what would you say if there's a bad downside to it? What would you say that downside is?
I think there's two downsides that are going to happen and are in some ways unavoidable. Number one is there's two special things that only human beings have been able to do for all of human history. Number one, we've been the only ones to create meaningful relationships with each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have not, no matter how much people love their animals, it's never been quite the same as having a husband, a wife, a daughter, a parent. That relationship. That's number one. And number two is human beings have been the only thinking machines in history, right? You can have, once upon a time we used to plow our own farms, and then we realized oxen could do it, and then we realized tractors could do it, and then we realized, automated robotic tractors can do it, right? But it was still a human being making the decision or thinking. These two things so these two special roles that human beings have had. We alone have had emotions, not emotions. We alone have had meaningful relationships with other humans. And number two, we've been the thinkers. Those were our two special superpowers as a species.
Mm-hmm.
That no, monkeys don't have that, rocks don't have it, oxen don't. Those two superpowers are no longer going to be special in the world of AI. So that special place we've had in the universe is no longer going to be special, and that kind of results in a very philosophical or existential crisis for us. We're no longer special. And how will we deal with that as a species? I don't know, but it's something we're going to have to deal with in a really rough way over the next couple of decades.
What kind of education you think humans should have when it comes to this new world that's it's creeping up on us.
I'd say three things are changing versus traditional education systems. Number one, certain skills that were really valuable 10 or 20 years ago are totally useless, like spelling. I spent, when I was in school, we learned how to spell and write paragraphs. That's not super useful, or even type, right? Like if you ever remember Mavis Beacon or those typing things so you could type 100 words a minute, that's not super useful because now you can talk to a robot at 150 words a minute and it'll transcribe everything for you. So a lot of skills that we had learned historically, spelling, writing, are going to be less valuable. That's number one. Number
Mhm.
two is certain other skills are going to be much more valuable, such as understanding how to interact with these AI tools or with these robots, understanding what they're good at and what they're bad at. Like almost anybody can talk to ChatGPT today, but the average person using ChatGPT or Gemini or any of these LLMs doesn't understand what the limitations of these tools are, where they break down, where they're wrong, what the engineers call the hallucinations of the LLMs. And number three is that probably new skills. So that second was learning how to work with these AIs, and number three is there's probably going to be new skills that I can't even sit here imagining today that are going to be needed in 10 years. Like if we just look back at the clock 5 years ago, no one thought that there was this magical skill called prompt engineering that would emerge. But now, if you want to work with an AI, you better be really good at prompt engineering. And that was a skill that didn't even exist 5 years ago, right? It would be like typing wasn't a skill 100 years ago. And, by the 1990s, if you didn't know how to type, you couldn't work in an office.
Yeah, it's true. And, everything is just changing. And I think it's just for someone like me who, always liked tech, but not, super, thorough in understanding what goes on behind it. At this point, I just use it. For people, what's your advice for people that are like me, that, feel behind, need to catch up, know that all these things are changing, and really kind of just want to feel like we're present to what's happening?
Sure. So, firstly, the fact that you're openly acknowledging that you are, feeling like you're falling behind. That's the first step, right? Like the first step to a problem is recognizing that you have a problem or challenge. The second is the good news is you're nowhere near as far behind as you think, because 99% of humanity is in the same boat. They use these tools without understanding what these tools are, why they work, right? And the third is because you're not particularly far behind, it's actually really easy to go learn about them. Like what I would recommend if you care about LMs is Coursera, which is an online free university, has a couple of great courses on LMs, and there's two or three that are really powerful. One is there's one on how the actual code works. If you are really interested in the math and the code, it's called Deep Learning by Andrew Ng. If you don't care about how the code and engineering works, and you just want to know how you can better interact with it without knowing any of the math behind it, there's a course from Vanderbilt University offered on Coursera called Prompt Engineering. And it just tells you how do you better talk with the robot? Where does the robot break down without getting into any of the math? It's a course that like a 10-year-old could use, but personally made me like 10x better with using these AI tools. So I encourage you. And the great thing is you can go learn it over a weekend. Like these courses are 10 hours long. So they're not, they're not college level, 100 hours, deep notes and things like that. Well, the Andrew Ng one is, but that's if you want to go learn the hardcore math.
Most people probably would not, but
which is okay, right?
Which is
I have to
right?
as part of my job, right? You probably don't as part of your job.
Yeah, but it's good to know that those things are out there, because I mean, you just never know when those issues may come up where you need the education to, further your mind and this new tech world.
One thing on that, and the thing I want to emphasize is this education that's out there is free, right? 20 years ago, you'd have to pay somebody a lot of money or go to a fancy university. If you wanted to go learn about ML, there were maybe like 10 universities in the world and they were all super expensive. Today, you can go watch a free YouTube video, go to these free online universities and get access to that education for free. And that's incredibly empowering.
That is. What is the future for IdeaScale?
Sure. So IdeaScale, I think, is going through three transformations at the same time. Historically, we were very much like a one product, North America focused company. The three transformations that are happening are, number one, about a year ago, we started expanding globally. We added people in Mexico, South Africa, Japan, Europe. And so we're trying to make our software much more accessible through people in the world. We just won the national government of one of Eswatini, right, which is a small country in Africa. So we're starting to really expand and have a global presence and make a global impact in how countries even are innovating, which is kind of cool. Number two, we are adding more products. So historically, we had this, our core solution is an idea management solution or an idea social network. We're adding a whole bunch of other products that help people innovate. So we recently launched and are about to relaunch a whiteboarding solution. So you can do anything you can on a piece of paper, except you can do it digitally. As well as in about 6 weeks or so, we're launching this AI tool that basically takes all of your data and understands it for you. That's really cool. It doesn't analyze it for you. It understands it for you. And so we're launching this kind of these other products that will help our customers innovate faster, more effectively, and come up with better ideas and get those ideas done. And then thirdly is we are trying to make a greater impact at the organizations we already serve. We historically entered or worked with the innovation departments or R&D departments of many companies, but we realized, look, that's only a small part of innovation. Innovation doesn't just happen in the innovation department. It doesn't just happen in the R&D department. Guess what? If you work on a factory floor, people are innovating how to make that factory floor more efficient or more safe or more clean. We want to be there and we want to make an impact there. So we're also expanding into the areas of businesses and organizations we serve.
It's a bright future. You guys have a lot of stuff happening in IdeaScale, and you're the CEO of IdeaScale. And I can just tell from, this conversation that we had that, you always, it seems like you always have ideas and things flowing.
I should, because that's it's what we do. If I didn't live and breathe what we do, then I'd be a pretty terrible CEO.
And I was going to say that you are a great representative of your business and your company. So, there it is. When people look at you and talk to you or listen to this podcast or see the podcast, they get a great example of what the business is all about through who you are. And going, you've accomplished so much. And I know that I wrote it down here, I know you like to play poker, right? So if you could go back and play poker with your younger self, what advice would you give him?
Okay, I would give two pieces of advice. And I'm a pretty competitive poker player, right? I'm trying to make my way to be good enough to play at the World Series and actually, have a shot at winning. So I'm not good. I'm not there yet. I'm probably like 5 or 10 years.
The hope of actually going to be on that stage is pretty good.
I've won enough money where I consistently win, right? I could already go and pay for my own ticket there. It's just like, I'm going to go and lose. I'll make it to day 2 or day 3, but I'm going to get killed by the pros and I don't want to wait. Then it's wasted a lot of money.
You could probably teach me something.
I want to have a shot. So I would say I would give 2 pieces of advice on poker to my younger self. Number 1, understand that a lot of poker players don't actually understand how the game works. Most of them, a lot of people, about 90% of people are playing poker or just truly to gamble, right? They don't understand what good decisions are versus bad decisions. I incorrectly, throughout most of my poker career, until actually last weekend, literally assumed that most people I had this terrible assumption that people understood how the game worked. And turns out most people, they know what the hand rankings are. They know that a flush beats a straight, but that's about it. And number 2 is understand the fear motivation. So whenever people are gambling, yes, there's greed, there's adrenaline, but there's fear. And one thing you have to do really well in poker is understand how fear plays into the dynamics of the game. And I don't think I certainly I'm not even great at that today. But I'm certainly better than I was at it like 4 or 5 years ago. And so I would love to teach my younger self how to understand and take advantage of fear as a mechanic of the game.
Okay, you got deep there for.
You asked me for if I've got 5 minutes with my younger self, I've built a time machine, travel back. I'm not going to waste his or my younger self's time with hey, have this Wendy's burger instead of the McDonald's burger. Tastes better. I'm going to give him life advice that's going to help him win.
No, it was good. I was leading to that. I mean, that's good because a lot of people probably wouldn't think that, but being the person that you are, that's a great conversation that you should have you could have with your younger self. That's pretty great, man. The conversation has been really great, and you've showed me and really taught me some things throughout this conversation. And one is, life is going to change, right? And there's ways that we can educate ourselves continually with the changing environment, with, the innovation of who we are as people in our businesses, and innovation of the business itself, and also with the whole tech world and how AI is changing and how it's changing our lives. And there's something to be said about, being educated, and not living in the past, but being in the present and flowing into the future and being educated about all that. What advice, as your last words, what advice would you give someone? Just last words, advice, a story. What would you say to someone?
Two pieces of advice. I'll give two. Number one, go get some fresh air. The world outside is awesome, and it raises, there's all sorts of hormonal reasons for why fresh air and sunlight make such a big difference to people's lives. We spend way too much time inside. Number two is throughout your career, whatever you do in life, go just learn new skills, right? It doesn't matter whether you're a CEO, whether you're a junior analyst, whether you're a janitor, whether you're a line worker at a factory teacher, go learn a new skill. It will make you smarter, make you happier, and make you more proud of who you are as a human being. And that'll lend more meaning to your life.
I love that. Nick, how does one get in touch with you? From the business owners from 1 to 99 and 99 people and up, how do they get in touch with you?
So two ways. Number one, our website is IdeaScale.com. You can see the spelling behind me. If you want to use our software, as I said, it's completely free. There's a Get Started Free button at the top. Start it. Takes 30 seconds to sign up. It's all online, so no downloads required. And you'll be up and running in like 15 to 20 seconds. It's pretty awesome. Number two, if you want to get in touch with me personally, the best way is through LinkedIn. My name is Nick Jain. It's down at the bottom of the screen there. DM me. I respond to 100% of messages on LinkedIn, so feel free to DM me.
Nick, I want to thank you for being on the podcast. Thank you for your time, and you've been amazing. And for all your listeners and watchers, make sure that you connect with us on Facebook or Instagram at the Thrivewell Journey. As we always say, make thriving your new normal. And I will see you on the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.